So we're going to start with our vegetables. In order to make this process as easy as possible, especially if you have a lot of people showing up for your game day, you're going to want to make sure that you have one bowl for each of the things you're going to be cutting. So this is called mise en place, which is the French term for everything in its place. So if you're going to be doing broccoli, put the broccoli in the bowl that it's going to be going in. Same with potatoes or whatever else you may be cutting. Now we already went over the knife, but in order to properly hold the knife, you're going to wrap your hand around the knife. This finger goes down the side of the blade and the thumb holds here. Now if you have rivets visible on your blade and on your handle, your thumb is going to go on that first rivet, the finger is going to go down the side, and the rest of the fingers wrap around the base of the handle. So here we go. So how are we going to cut this stuff? It's easier to cut a square than it is to cut a circle. So when you're cutting something, you're always going to want to slice it down into a square when possible, or slice it directly into the bowl it's going to be going into. Now, broccoli is actually really easy to cut, even though it's not very flat on any sides. Just hold it by the end and cut downward, spinning the broccoli as you go. That will render you with a florets of broccoli. Now, if they came out too big, you can just go back in and chop them down a little bit. Okay, so there we go. So my broccoli is done. Broccoli is complete. If you are one of those people, like me, who happens to like the stem of broccoli, just go ahead, put the knife and the blade down on your cutting block, single nice chop, and then cut off one side. I now have a flat surface that I can work with on both of these. I'm just going to cut that, throw that in there. Cut, cut, rotate, cut, rotate, cut, and those pieces are done. And now my broccoli is ready to go. Now I'm going to do the same thing after cleaning off my cutting board with all of my other vegetables. So my potatoes, make sure you've washed them all thoroughly. It's a good idea to scrub them, but if you're not, hold on to it, give it a single cut through. Now if you're using, this is a red potato, also called a new potato. If you're using other kinds of potatoes, you're just going to cut them the same way. If you're using a fingerling potato, the really teeny tiny potatoes or baby potatoes, you don't even need to cut them. You're just going to leave them as they are. You're going to want to cut these down into pieces. You can either do like a quarter size of a new potato, or you could chop that down one bit further. The smaller you make them, the more they're going to cook faster. So it kind of depends on whether you like your potatoes a little bit on the firm side or a little bit on the a little bit more on the soft side. But I'm going to leave a variety of textures in mine. So, but you don't want to go any smaller than sort of a large die size. So again, cut that. It's now flat, and I can cut it much more easily. Now this one's a little bit bigger, so I'm going to do some additional cuts on it. As you see, it's just going back into the same bowl that it came out of. So I don't have to worry about where it's going to go. I already know where it is headed as soon as I start my cutting process. When dealing with friends for games, always make sure you know about any allergies. So I'm just going to, again, rough chop this into fairly large pieces. Because for this recipe, fairly large pieces are just fine. If the pieces you think would be too big to eat easily, just go ahead and slice them down again. So I'm just gonna do a quick chop down here in the middle of these. And because they have a nice flat edge on the bottom, they don't move. There we go. So my squash, yellow squash, is now fully chopped. I'm going to clear my cutting board because a clean cutting board is a safe cutting board. So I'm going to clear my cutting board off. So I'm already done with my vegetables. Now I do have one more vegetable here that I want to show you for cutting purposes. So an onion. How do you cut an onion? So again, you want a flat surface because otherwise it's going to roll around on you. And you want to get the skin off. So I don't know the best way to do this, but you're going to want to make a couple of cuts. Number one, now if you're cutting just to like chop it into pieces, you can go ahead and cut the end off. But all of your onion pieces are actually held together at this end. So depending on what you are doing, you might not want to actually cut that end off. Let me cut this end off. And now, if you notice I have a flat surface, I'm going to cut here, just like that. And now I have a flat surface on 3 sides. I'm going to clear my cutting board off. Now I can now peel the outer layer of this onion pretty easily. And since I'm not a tremendous onion fan, I'm just gonna not worry about taking the layer of skin off underneath it as well. I'm just gonna peel all that off. Now make sure you wash your hands after doing that. Onion should probably be one of the last vegetables that you cut because it's going to flavor anything else potentially that you cut on this cutting board. I just cut mine into large chunks. There we go. I am done. All right, so you should have some aluminum foil, cut vegetables, and cut fruit or whatever you're going to use. And make sure you also have your sauces out. Now, the last thing you're going to have to do is you're going to want to take your chicken and ideally chop it down to be a little bit smaller. If you want to, you could pound it like we did in our variable power rolls game. But you're going to want to use chicken, and if you're using chicken tenders, just go ahead and put them in. But if you're using chicken breasts, you may need to chop them down. You can also use other kinds of meat for this, sausages, pork, beef. You can do all sorts of stuff. But chop them down to about 4-ounce sizes. So this large chicken breast, that's about 1/3 of the chicken breast, is about 4 ounces. And then again, use your tongs and put it in the center of your aluminum foil. I'm gonna put this off here for a moment. Now at this point, you're going to get to do some fun stuff. You're going to choose what vegetables you want to put on this dish. So I'm going to throw in some potatoes, and I'm going to throw in some zucchini, and I might throw in some pepper if I had some, and I'm going to throw in some broccoli. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to add a little bit of oil. I'm going to use my oil, which is back here. I'm going to add a little bit of oil. It doesn't take much. I'm just going to drizzle the whole thing. And then I'm going to add a sauce. Now, I can add whatever sauce I would like. Barbecue sauce is a great starting point. This is a sauce that would not have been available to anyone who didn't have access to the New World, because tomatoes come from South America. Okay, so just go ahead and pour your sauce mainly over your chicken, because it's going to boil out of here. You might also want to add some salt and pepper to your dish. This is a salt and pepper to taste kind of thing. I generally recommend adding salt and pepper after the fact, because that way you get to test it beforehand. But if you know you're going to want additional salt and additional pepper, go ahead and add it now. All right, so last piece, and then this one is ready to go. We're going to take this and we're going to wrap it and fold it up. You might have to grab yourself a second piece of foil because you want to crimp the edges, and you want the whole thing rolled so that there is some air, so a little bit of space up at the top of the packet. If there's not space at the top of the packet, it won't cook quite right. All right, my oven is set to 400 degrees. Go ahead and take your pan, throw it in for about 25 minutes. You want to make sure that your chicken reaches an internal temperature of at least 165 degrees to make sure it's fully cooked. To cut this pineapple, we're going to be using this pineapple for 2 pieces. I'm going to put some of it into my campfire chicken, and I'm going to throw some of it in with my s'mores. So, how do I cut this thing? Well, first thing I'm going to want to do is cut off the top. Okay. Now, if you notice, I now have a flat surface, and I can work with that flat surface. This you might want to save to like put on top of a drink or something, or make it into a hat. So I'm just going to sit that there for the moment. So I'm going to, again, I'm going to take a cut down the side of this, thereby creating another flat surface so my pineapple doesn't roll, and I'm going to cut the bottom off. Didn't quite get all of it. There we go. So I'm going to get rid of all that stuff. You could go in and like slice out the stuff that's good. So I have this flat edge, but to make this really usable, I'm just going to go around the edges and cut off the portions that I don't want around the outside. Now there are also pineapple edgers and pineapple cutters, and you can use those as well. But this is just as easy, if not easier. And then just make sure you trim all of the outside edge off. Make sure you have a nice, clean pineapple. All right, so there we go. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to dump all of that again. Now, at this point, I'm going to do 2 things with my pineapple. I'm going to use some of it for our main dish, so I'm just going to slice off part of it for that. And I want to get this center core out. There's lots of ways of getting the center core. Because I'm not interested in particularly thin slices, I'm just going to, and I'm going to be cooking it, I am just going to slice edges off of it, and I'm not going to worry a little bit so much about that center piece. That's the piece that's no good. These pieces, I'm just going to chop into big chunks and throw in here for use in one of my campfire chickens. Now, the rest of this I'm going to set aside because I'm going to use it for my s'mores. Since I already have it out and I already have my knife, just to save time, I'm going to slice this down. And we're going to do something else with it in a little bit. To make Hawaiian s'mores, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need either a saute pan or a stovetop griddle or a real grill. You're going to need your pineapple. You're going to need some graham crackers, and you're going to need a marshmallow. So we cut our pineapple earlier. So I have this one that I used just a knife to slice out the center ring. But there are other ways to do this. You can get a pineapple corer, or just find a fun cookie cutter. Cookie cutters do a perfectly good job of removing the center core from your pineapple. There we go. And now I also happen to have this lovely little star shape. Once you have, and this one fell apart, which is okay. Once you have your piece of pineapple cut, you're going to transfer it to the pan. If you are working with a grill, you might want to lightly grease it or oil it. Just go ahead, toss your pineapple into the hot pan, medium-high heat. And you want to cook both sides for about 30 seconds or so. As soon as you got side 1 done, go ahead and flip it over to do side 2. Basically, you're heating up your pineapple and getting a little bit of the water to cook out of it. That's your sole goal. Now, while that is cooking, take your graham cracker, snap it in half, and put your marshmallow on top. Go ahead and throw it in the microwave for 15 to 20 seconds, depending on how powerful your microwave is. You want your marshmallow to expand. That looks good. All right, I have my marshmallow. My pineapple has been cooking for long enough. So I'm just going to take that, pull it off the heat, turn that off, and transfer my pineapple on top of my marshmallow, top it with the other half of my graham cracker. And I now have a gooey, wonderful mess of a Hawaiian s'more. Now, this does violate one of my principles of strategic cuisine, which is that dishes shouldn't be messy, but come on, it's a s'more. Go ahead and enjoy. All right, so this just came out of the oven, and I'm going to need to do one last thing before putting it back in for 3 minutes of time. I'm going to open up the foil so that the steam can escape. Now, you want to be careful when doing this because steam is hot. So you want to open this up so that your chicken and vegetables can go back in and be cooked appropriately. Now, I do recommend, if you happen to have a meat thermometer, that you test the temperature on your chicken to make sure it has reached an appropriate temperature. Mine says 172 degrees, so that's good. So I'm just going to open up all of these so they can all benefit from the direct heat of the broiler. And then these are going to be available to eat. Throw them back in for a minute. So as you can see, I have 3 different dishes as well as my spare vegetables. The one last thing I would want to do is top it off with a little bit of additional sauce, and then throw it onto a plate or bowl to enjoy. So there you go, your wonderful Conqueror's chicken.